Welcome to the Realtor for Hoopers podcast.
When I pull up with my dogs, we gon' ball like Swish. No, I ball like. No, I ball like.
All right, well, welcome to episode 21 of the interviews series. Today, our guest is the all-time leading scorer, rebounder, and shot blocker in Loveland High School history, in Loveland High School in Ohio, not Colorado.
Cincinnati.
Yeah. Bobby Capobianco?
Nailed it.
Yes.
Nailed it.
It was I had to ask like 3 or 4 times, but here we are.
That was the first time.
Question we always kind of start everyone off is tell us your basketball story.
Dang.
And you can start when you're 2 years old. You can start in high school.
Yeah.
Answer it how you want to answer it.
I mean, I feel like for most people who have a basketball story, it starts really young.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big kid. I'm still a big person, but kind of knew from the beginning that I was going to have a chance with basketball. I have 2 unbelievably great parents who have helped me a ton on my journey. My mom won a national championship in college playing basketball, the women's NIT in 1985 on a 1-and-1 free throw. I've seen the fake baseline, sky hook to the middle, gets fouled, steps up, sinks 2, walks it off. Yeah, really an unbelievable basketball player herself. My dad played football at Vanderbilt as well. So grew up in a athletic family. Just loved it. Loved having the ball in my hands. Got a lot of just amazing opportunities and people in my life. Obviously at a young age, just kind of bounced around, played a lot of sports, did a lot of things. Lived in North Carolina from the time I was in 3rd grade until 8th grade. And I got to play for the North Carolina Gators, which a couple of teams older than me had a couple of really like Carmelo Anthony, Rashad McCants, Luke May, like a couple of like big time basketball players. So our program had a lot of really good things happen to it. I got some unbelievable coaching and really enjoyed that. Right before 3 days before high school started, moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. It was funny. You saw me sort of laughing during the all-time leading scorer, rebounder, block shots. I loved going to high school at Loveland. We were a pretty terrible basketball program, but my AAU team was so prolific that high school basketball kind of felt like a break. Like it was just fun. Yeah. It didn't mean anything. Yeah. None of the games mattered. Like I'm passing it to a guy who like I was just in like, chemistry class with, hoping he's going to get a bucket. Like I'm not throwing it to the wing to like a guy who I know is an NBA like lottery pick. Like, so high school was really fun. I had a great coach. I had a lot of great friends, but it was pointless.
It was a no pressure environment.
No pressure. It was just fun. Like get to work on my game, go out, have some fun, be with my friends. But really my sort of basketball story is all AAU. Went from North Carolina Gators, moved to Ohio, got a chance to play for Indiana Elite, which for a lot of people who follow AAU basketball or have, Indiana Elite's been a prolific program for a long time. On our team, we had 11 guys, 10 of which went major Division I. The only other guy was the coach's son and played football at Indiana. Lives here in Denver. If you need a real estate agent that isn't here, David Blackwell, who's one of my good friends. He's a real estate agent in Denver now, but played on that AAU team. But yeah, we had, just in that group of guys, went on to college. Some won national championships. 4 or 5 of those guys played in the NBA. A lot of those guys had prolific careers overseas. So really just like AAU was just the pinnacle of basketball, and certainly at a time that I came through. And I got recruited heavily, got my first scholarship offer right at the beginning of 7th grade. So knew that basketball was something that I was going to do at a high level. I think the highest I ever got, I think I was ranked 31st in the country at one point during my junior year of high school. Was considering a couple of different schools pretty heavily. Was recruited by Tom Crean at Marquette, and loved that group of guys, loved that atmosphere, and Marquette was really high on my list. And then I remember Tuesday, it was a Tuesday, the day before on the Monday, Coach Crane had left Marquette and took the Indiana job. Indiana was obviously 2 hours from my house, being in Cincinnati.
This is 2009?
2009.
Okay.
Yeah, so he took the Indiana job. That was 2008 because it was the year before I graduated because there was one season before I got there. Okay. He took the job on a Monday, called me Tuesday morning, first thing, said, Bobby, your scholarship offer is still good here. And I mean, at that point, I knew my parents were going to come to every game that I played, whether I was playing at Indiana 2 hours away or in, Pepperdine on the West Coast. Like, they were coming no matter what. And so, yeah, it was just a dream. I loved Indiana. Had spent my AAU team was based out of Bloomington. And so, yeah, committed on the spot. Just, awesome. Yeah, I'm there. Had an unbelievable time. Indiana taught me so much about myself. Had some pretty high level, just moral and ethical disagreements with just the way Indiana basketball was running and what was happening at the time. And I just thought, instead of try to challenge the system, instead of try to, change whatever, I thought, I've been working my butt off for my whole life to get here. Yeah. I loved it playing in Assembly Hall. Like, we had open practices at the beginning of the year that we would sell out. 18,000 people to bring canned food to watch us practice. Like, it was the best thing ever. But then I just said I needed a change. And so I decided to transferred to Valparaiso, played for Bryce Drew, had 3 just epic teams while we were there, made an NCAA tournament run, just had a lot of fun and loved it. And then since then I turned down all the opportunities to play pro. I didn't want to go overseas. I didn't really want to do anything. I wanted to just start working and playing men's league. And so I'm still doing that now. Great. Yeah.
Well, good. I appreciate you going through that.
Yeah,
that's good.
Totally.
So where, kind of the next question, and you alluded to it a little bit, but I'll let you expand on it if you want. And playing basketball at Indiana, where it's a religion.
Yep.
What is kind of either a story you can tell, or what do you think is the best part about playing college basketball there?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many things. Like I mentioned, an open practice with 18,000 people in a sold out Assembly Hall. Like that's bananas. But that ethos of how they see basketball, and I mean, you almost can't be off campus, like in public, without, and especially too, like, I mean, at least at that time, like all they gave us to wear were like giant 4XL red jumpsuits. So we looked like, I mean, we were like walking billboards. Like, even if you didn't know we were basketball players, it was like, oh, by the way, here are these giant Santa suit guys.
Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah, exactly. That was like, those were our basketball team issued jumpsuits. But yeah, I mean, they took care of us everywhere. It was a great environment. And it was really cool too, because we had a lot of really storied guys that were there. And so like Tim Garl, who not only was my athletic trainer, but still is, I think he's had the job for 97 years now. I don't know how long he's been there, but it was really cool because ex-players that would come back through, guys that were a part of the program. It was cool because they weren't walking into, coaching staff switch so much and things happen that a lot of times it's like, same place, same group, but not the same people. Whereas we had a lot of guys that were in the Indiana basketball program that had been there feasibly forever. And so when these guys would come back, there were lots of stories, lots of lessons taught, lots of people coming in and out of the locker room. So I think that part of Indiana basketball was really cool that it had that kind of connective fabric through the time I was there. So.
Yeah, I'm sure like it's one of those things where there is that historical like progression of a program that just doesn't ever go down, there's no swings in it. It's just always going to be an historical program that the access you have to certain resources of not only from the player side, but also from the coach's side, because everyone knows what Indiana basketball represents. And so I think that is a benefit to it of just being able to be like, look, I'm a Hoosier. I've been a Hoosier and I'm always will be a Hoosier. And no matter what generation you're at, like that.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you say I'm a Hoosier, then there's a connection right there.
It's weird too. I mean, even to like being out of college now for 13, 14 years, I still walk around and every once in a while there'll be somebody who will go, "Are you Bobby?" And I'll go, "Yes, nice to meet you." Did I meet them here in Denver at work? And they'll be like, no, I'm a big Indiana basketball fan. My wife's like, "Is this ever going to end?" And I'm like, I hope so, but probably not. No. So I mean, just one of the best fan bases in the world. And I think one of the really cool things about Indiana is like, it's a fan base that knows basketball. Yeah. It's not just like there are certain programs that have a lot of energy towards the program.
They're big fans.
But they're big fans, but they're not basketball heads. They're not people that are like, we would get people that would come up to after the game and be like, "Thought you played really well. If you're going to cut back door, you need to do it with more pace." And you're like, "Thank you. Don't tell coach that. We got to go watch film."
So they're using all the terminology.
Correct. They really.
You got to hedge harder on that DHO. It's just like, what?
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Yeah, so many coaches in the stands.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, post basketball.
Yep.
You've been, I would say, an entrepreneur in many different industries.
Yeah.
So I guess just in general, from an entrepreneurship perspective, what do you think has been the most rewarding part? And then 2-part question: what do you think has been the hardest part of your journey there?
I think I'll start at the other part. The hardest part, I think, for a long time was finding my identity in something, because my identity had been so deep in not just basketball, but as an athlete. Like in my head, like, I mean, you and I are sitting here today. We're both, if someone says like, "What are you?" first, you're like, "I'm an athlete."
Yes.
And then I'm all these other things. Yeah. And so I think working my way through the sort of corporate, I didn't ever go corporate, but just job world, figuring out where it was. I think part of it for me was like everything up until what I've been doing recently, which I could talk about, but like everything before that felt like Bobby doing a job, not Bobby, the person who sort of embodies that job, that role. I was having just this, like, we'd be in these really heavy work conversations. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just business. Like, it's not like the game's on the line and we got to go out. And like, I don't know. I think I struggled with that for a while. I think the most rewarding part and the thing I've enjoyed is like the journey of sort of that, a little bit of that ego death of like who I was, kind of letting it go a little bit to sort of, and what's interesting for me was that kind of putting that aside. For a couple of years I felt lost, but I sort of planted that seed, if you will, and then have watched my career kind of mold and shape and grow, and something new sort of came out of it. So with founding and launching Full Circle, working in the health and wellness sort of marketing space, I get to sort of like put that athlete suit back on, but in a totally different way. And like, I get to take some of the best parts.
Service role.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, man, like, and I never wanted to be a coach, but I always wanted to help people. Yeah. And so I remember people going like, "Bobby, you should coach basketball." And I never wanted to. I was kind of a rebellious basketball player from the beginning. And I was like, I'm not a good, like, I'm one of the people, like, I will tell my son, I'll tell anybody I know, like, if you catch the ball and you are remotely open, shoot it every single time. Like that, like, and that's not great coaching. That's not, so it's been fun to kind of come back into this in a way of like, I get to really, really impact people. I get to encourage them. I get to hype them up. I get to have all the good parts of that athletic journey without the like, okay, now it's time to sit down and watch tape and really show you. So there's been a cool just metamorphosis, if you will, of like kind of taking that athlete mentality into business, realizing I didn't know how to apply it, kind of taking it off, letting things sort of just churn, and then watching it kind of come back into life. So yeah, I think that's sort of where I'm at.
That's really powerful. I think going in, if you kind of went from the hardest part to the most rewarding part, and all of it is kind of what I call this exploration of who you are and what you want to do.
Totally.
The hardest part was you were exploring that and trying to figure out where I belong in this non-athlete thing. Yep. And now you've kind of found it. Now you're just exploring how to do this. It. Yeah. And now how do I use that athlete connection to who I am as a person and all of that.
Totally.
So, cool.
Totally.
So you said a little bit about it, but you've now have started Full Circle Events.
Yep.
So tell us about what Full Circle Events is and what the kind of the overall vision
Totally.
is.
Yeah. So Full Circle is a social wellness club.
Okay.
We operate across the country. We're currently in 4 cities: Denver, Austin, New York, Southern California.
Okay.
And it was born out of a couple different things. There was a work fit. There was, in the marketing space, we knew that health and wellness brands had a hard time getting good user-generated content, real testimonials, all of those parts and pieces. We knew Full Circle solved that issue. But what was so interesting was, as we brought it forward, we throw multiple events in each of the cities. Some are fitness related, some are health and wellness related. We're sitting in a sauna. We spend a lot of time doing unique things. But we also really focus on the social aspect of it. And so our tagline is Make Health Social. Our thought was, how do we create something that fills both your social cup and your health journey cup? And we saw this weird dichotomy of, like, let's say you're training for a race, but your friends want to go out on Friday night, and you're thinking, dang, I got a long run on Saturday, but I miss my friends because I've been at home going on these runs all week. And it's like, okay, cool. Do I sacrifice some of my long run to go out, have a couple beers with my friends? So we thought, like, how do we mix the two of those? And so can we throw an event on a Friday night that brings a bunch of people together, gets them moving, they break a sweat, they sit in a sauna, they cold plunge, they do all that, and then they go home, they take some products with them. The brands are happy. The people are happy. Everybody's getting a good night of sleep. And Saturday wakes up and it's time to go again. That's so awesome. Yeah, that was kind of the ethos of it. We've grown really fast. We're coming up on a year of doing these. We'll do probably about 140 events. We'll have served north of 4,500 people. It's been a wild. It's been a wild ride, but I mean, we're sitting at this studio, and 4 of the people that are outside right now using this place are Full Circle members who come to the events. We all, like, I had a friend who was like, all right, Bobby, I'll see you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday of this week, because that's when we had events. So it's a cool way of, like, hey, would you want to do all the stuff you'd like to do anyway, but do it with a group of people that you love, that builds into you, that does all that kind of stuff. So
that's really cool. What I love most about the kind of the overall vision and kind of what you're building is that one of the biggest reasons people don't stick to their health and wellness goals is accountability. Yeah. And it's just such a fun way to bring the accountability of a team into it. Because if you're a Full Circle member, then if you don't show up, I guarantee you someone's texting you going like, hey,
where are you at?
Where were you at? Like,
missed you today. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it just breathes like, hey, I'm not just doing this alone.
Yeah.
No matter if you have to lose 100 pounds or you're just trying to stay in shape a little bit, it just breathes kind of a community around it. So.
Yeah. There's a quote. A lot of people use it. We use it a lot. And it's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. Yeah. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah. And our idea is just like, life is better. Human beings are built as like a connected species. We're a group of people that operate better when we're together. And so for us, it's like, how do we approach all of the things that so many people, especially in today's world with the internet, with social media, it's like, if you're struggling with something that you're just asking yourself a question, I'm a young man, and like, I don't feel like maybe my testosterone is where I might want it to be. What do? You're sitting at home, you're in your apartment. Like, are you going to go ask your roommates? Like, they're like, they're not doing anything. Are you going to go ask your mom and dad? Probably not. You're going to get online and look. You're going to do so like, also too, just to create this place where like you can show up and I can go, hey, I got this crazy question. Have you ever thought about your testosterone, or have you had it tested? And then somebody go, I use, like, we just are trying to foster this bigger community where it's like, you have a group of people that aren't necessarily your best friends that you're like really locked in with, but they're a group of people have your best interest in heart. And so, it speaks for itself. It's really taken off, and I think people are getting a lot of good out of it.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. All right. Well, 2 more questions.
I'm ready.
This one's kind of a little bit funner.
Good.
One. It's kind of more of a basketball focused one. Is, would you rather be a star playing overseas, getting paid probably more money, you're the guy playing, whether it's in EuroLeague or whatever, or be the last guy on the bench on an NBA roster?
That's an easy answer for me. I'm the star of my own story, of my own life, every single day. And for me, that's that's something where in life, I want the ball in my hands. And like if anybody knows me and has played basketball with me, like I'm out there for one purpose, and that is to score the ball. Like I'm there. My favorite quote ever is I'm in range once I get off the bus. Yeah. I'm in life, I want the ball in my hands. And that doesn't mean that I'm always going to shoot. I feel like basketball has given me a great perspective of in life, sometimes swinging the ball around the perimeter is the best possible thing you can do. Sometimes looking one direction and throwing it another way is what has to happen. Yeah. And sometimes it is you versus a man in front of you thinking, I can do this. So for me, I mean, obviously we all know what the crowds are like in Europe. We all know how that thing goes. But I think like when I look at my life as a whole, the greatest benefit I've ever gotten is like, and I think team sports teach you this, and I don't know how else in life you get this, is that like, it's not even irrational. It's just like an overwhelming sense of self-confidence of like something I've taken into life when I've done hard things, I've signed up for hard races, is like, you're my boy, but if we go on the court today and there's the unfortunate situation where you're on the other team, I'm going for 40. Oh, yeah. I want you to quit basketball when you're done because you hated guarding me that much. And whether that's true or not, that's a mentality that I have inside of me that I can then walk into any meeting, any relationship, any like, I can sit in a room and not have to wrestle with like what I bring to the table because team sports teaches you that of like, sometimes being the man is letting somebody else be the man. Sometimes being the man is doing it yourself. There's so many kind of parts and pieces. And I feel like the game taught me that. And so for me, that's an eeasy answer of like, I want the rock, give it to me. I don't care where I'm at. I could be in men's league playing against somebody's dad and I want the rock.
I appreciate that. No, I think there is what you're saying about the self-confidence that team sports build is that, especially if you've ever been even close to the guy on your team, there's a certain pressure that comes along with that. Because most of the time, especially in basketball, when you're the guy, most of the time growing up at least, maybe not when you get to really high levels, you're not only expected to either score or create the offense, you're also expected to guard the best guy in the other end.
Correct.
And so like when you've had that amount of pressure every time you're on the floor, there's very little that scares you when you get to the quote unquote the real world.
Correct.
Because it's just like, I'm good. Like,
you want me to do that, and I'll guard the best player, and I'll take that project on, and I'll help make this thing happen. And like, it's also too like it's the silly things that like I think a lot of people see in sports, and if you haven't played it, you don't get it. Like if you're down bad and team's running and you're getting chewed out by coach, and there's that last guy, the team's running with him.
Oh yeah,
you have to. Yeah. Like in the beginning, you think like this is stupid, like he sucks, he's slow, and he's making me run more. But then you start to like drink the Kool-Aid, and you're like, I gotta help him. Like, come on, let's run. Like, let's get this finish. Like, I think just that mentality of like whatever it takes all the time is such a thing that just separates people in life. And team sports really gives you that, especially at a high level. When like, look, it's one thing. Like, and I know a lot of people talk about like, oh yeah, I didn't play college, but I did this and this, and like, it's even different in the pros. But like to walk out onto a court with 10, 15, 20,000 people. I've walked out to Rupp Arena, sold out, 24,000 people who hate you, who are
screaming obscenities at you.
Yes, correct. And like that's so good for you as a person to just be able to be like, I'm here and whatever happens. Like, give me the ball. Like, let's find out. Like, So I think it's a great skill.
Cool. Great. Well, before I ask you the last question, I want to acknowledge you. We haven't known each other for that long, but the thing that I'm becoming the most underrated skill that I am attracted to, that I'm realizing, is just energy.
Yeah. And
the energy that people bring to their lives, whether that's on social media where we first connected, whether that's when you meet, there's people that you connect with, and then there's people just that bring a whole other energy to to not only their lives, but the people around them and all that. So from the first moment, I'm like, I just need to meet that guy.
I appreciate that.
Because we're wired a lot in the same way. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think for anybody who's watching this, it's something that I feel like a lot of people just think certain people are born with. but it's a skill that you can
Absolutely.
hone. Like we all have canned answers in life of like, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. My answer, like 90% of the times, I'm living the dream.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's true all the time, but I've conditioned myself that if I'm going to put something out to someone,
Yep.
even if it seems like a worthless, like, what's up, bro?
Yep.
It's going to be positive. It's going to raise the bar just a little bit. It's unbelievable. Like when you raise the bar, you see other people like start to sit up a little bit higher, and you're like, oh, cool. Like we're collectively like bringing the energy up. So if you're somebody and you're wondering like how you take the next step in your job, in your relationship, in your life, raise your own bar and people will respond to that. Like just lead with value, bring some positivity, and people are so sad and so lonely all the time that if you bring like you dangle the carrot, they're gonna be like, I'm interested. Like, how do I do to get a little bit of this? So I think thank you for saying that. And I think that's one of those things that I relate to with people all the time. And that was why I was excited to do this, excited to spend more time with you. Is just, I like those people who I know are chasing. I don't care what you're chasing because I can learn something from how you're doing.
Love it. Sweet. All right. Well, last question.
All right, I'm ready.
And we've talked a lot about it, but like you got to pick one thing.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing about basketball?
Gosh, that's a big question. I have two answers. The first and like the correct answer is the people. It's the people all the way through, because basketball is such a community of people that want to see you do well. And I think back about you asked like, tell your basketball story. And in the back of my head, there's a whole bunch of names of people who I could say and who I would love to look into the camera and go like, John Lewis, I love you and I owe so much to you. But like, that doesn't mean anything for anybody else. But just like the people I got to encounter, the basketball community as a whole is super special. And I also think too, like the other part of that I love is like everybody in life has a skill that they would say, it's like, hey, you gotta have one thing. This is mine. And like, that's basketball. Like I'm good at a lot of things in my life. I'm really, really good at basketball. I can throw that little ball from like all over the court with this hand. I don't have to have my weight right. I can make it just shoot up, go in the basket, no problem. And that to me is like the sweetest. Like my wife and I, who's a basketball player, and shout out to you, Elizabeth, are like our relief from stress. A lot of things is basketball. I have two little kids. For the first time, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old, 7-month-old. We went to Lifetime and we got them both in childcare at the same time. And we had like an hour. We had big plans. We were going to go lift and run and do all this stuff. We like walked out of childcare, like looked at each other and we're like, in the basketball course right across, and there was nobody out there. And she goes, you want to go shoot some hoops? We were out there for 45 minutes. We were sweating. We were playing ones. We were just like, to be in an empty gym and listen to that ball hit the ground and listen to it go through the basket is such a stress reliever, anxiety reducer. It's therapeutic. And so for me, that part of the game is really special.
I love it. Yeah. My parents always told me when I was growing up, they always knew when I was thinking or was trying to deal with something, because I would just be out in my driveway, no matter if, it'd be snowing outside. Totally. I'm like,
I've shot in gloves a lot.
Like,
100%.
It's just like,
I could be laying on my floor just watching it go up and back down into the hands.
I'm processing life. I need this.
Correct.
Well, Bobby, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Hell yeah.
Good luck with Full Circle and everything you're building, man.
When I pull up with my dogs, we gon' ball like Swish. No, I ball like.